The Vex Empire did not arrive with fire. They did not come with explosions or grand fleets. They announced themselves with a sound. We remember that sound clearly. It was not music. It was a weapon aimed at the soul. Their anthem blared from orbit first. It was a spear of noise that pierced our defenses. Our ships, our pride, faltered in its path. Their song was an ugly thing. It was full of sharp angles and grinding notes. It felt like metal tearing. It felt like glass breaking in your mind. The rhythm was a hammer. It beat against our courage until it cracked. It broke our will long before the first Vex soldier landed. We learned that day a war can be lost in silence. The silence that follows a terrible sound. They called it the Conqueror's Song. A fitting name for a tune that ended worlds. It was designed to create despair. It was engineered to crush hope. We heard it once from the sky. Then we heard it from every street corner. The Vex, the conquerors themselves, were almost an afterthought. Their true weapon was the air we breathed, filled with their anthem. We surrendered our cities without a fight. We laid down our arms, not in fear of their armies. We did so to escape the noise. We wanted only a moment of quiet, a moment to think, a moment to grieve. But the quiet never came. The Conqueror's Song was just beginning. It was the soundtrack to our new lives. Our world became a muted gray canvas. The anthem was the only color, a harsh, burning red. It played from dawn until dusk. Broadcast towers rose in our parks and squares. They were ugly, skeletal things. They pumped the Vex anthem into our homes and workplaces. There was no escape. It was the first thing we heard in the morning. It was the last thing we heard at night. The song was a constant reminder. It reminded us of our failure. It reminded us of our weakness. It spoke of Vex power and our own submission. The notes were a cage built from sound. We lived inside it. We tried to ignore it. We stuffed our ears with cloth. We built soundproof rooms in our basements. But the low frequencies always found a way in. They vibrated through the ground, through our bones. We lost our own music first. Who could sing while that noise clawed at the air? Our melodies felt fragile and pointless. Our own history, our songs of joy and sorrow, vanished. They were drowned out by the endless grinding triumph of the Vex. We moved through our days like ghosts. Our faces were blank. Our hearts were heavy with a sound we could not forget. It was an echo in the dust of our fallen civilization. Then, a miracle happened. It was a small thing, a sound so quiet it was almost lost in the noise. It began with a child. Her name was Ilara. She was 6 years old. She knew nothing of empires or surrender. She only knew the song that was always there. It was as normal to her as the sun in the sky. It was simply the sound the world made. We saw her in a dusty marketplace. She was playing with a small carved toy, and she was humming. She hummed the Conqueror's tune, but she hummed it all wrong. The sharp angles were smoothed away. The brutal rhythm was gone. In its place was a soft, slow, wandering melody. It was a child's broken version of a monster's song. It was not a song of power. It was not a song of fear. It was gentle. It was innocent. It was, in its own strange way, beautiful. We stopped and listened. For the first time, we truly heard the anthem, not as a weapon, but as a collection of notes. She had found something we had missed. She had found a flaw in the weapon. It could be broken. It could be changed. The sound of her small voice was a seed. It was a tiny, fragile thing planted in the ruins of our world. But it was enough. It was the beginning of our secret. It was the start of our war. A war fought not with guns, but with a melody. That little girl's broken hum became a whisper. The whisper became an idea. The idea spread through our broken communities. It traveled through hushed conversations in darkened rooms. It was a dangerous idea. It was an idea of defiance. What if we could take their song? What if we could make it our own? We were a people of artists and engineers. The Vex thought they had broken us. They had only given us a problem to solve. Our forgotten experts were called upon once more. Not our generals, not our politicians. We turned to our composers. We turned to our audio engineers. We turned to our psychologists who understood the mind. They were old now. Their hands were frail. Their faces were lined with sorrow. But a new fire burned in their eyes. They had a purpose again. Secret assemblies were held in deep cellars. They met in shielded bunkers we had built for a different kind of war. We used scavenged equipment. We jury-rigged sound analyzers and waveform displays. The work was slow and dangerous. A single Vex patrol could have ended it all. But we had to try. It was the only weapon we had left. They worked under the constant pressure of the Anthem itself. The noise vibrated the very walls of their hidden labs. It was a constant reminder of the stakes. They were trying to disarm a bomb while it was still ticking. And the bomb was the very air around them. It was a completely ridiculous plan. The best plans often are. We called it the Nightingale Project. We began to deconstruct their anthem. We fed the sound into our machines. We broke it down into thousands of component frequencies. We mapped its structure. We studied its rhythm. We treated it like a hostile piece of code, a virus for the soul. We had to understand how it worked. We needed to find the engine of its despair. The Vex were not subtle artists. Their song was brutal and complex. It used dissonant chords designed to create anxiety. It used infrasonic pulses that caused unease. These were frequencies so low, you felt them rather than heard them. It was sonic architecture at its most malevolent. It was clever, terribly clever, like a tax form set to music. For weeks, our experts found nothing but layers of noise. They found patterns of oppression. They found mathematical expressions of fear. The anthem was a fortress of sound. It seemed impenetrable. Some began to lose hope. They feared the Vex had created a perfect weapon, a sound that could not be reshaped, only endured. But we kept listening. We kept searching. We looked for a pattern that did not belong. We searched for a ghost in their machine. We believed no weapon was perfect. No song was pure evil. There had to be a flaw. There had to be a way inside. We just needed to find the key. The breakthrough came late one night. An old musician named Kale was filtering the noise. He was stripping away the layers of aggression one by one. He removed the grating overtones. He canceled out the jarring subharmonics. He was like an archaeologist brushing away layers of dirt. He was looking for the bone structure underneath. And he found it. Hidden deep inside the anthem's chaotic core was a secret. It was a simple, elegant sequence of notes, a 5-tone scale. It was a melody, a profound peace and beauty. It was a gentle, ancient thing. It was completely at odds with the weapon built around it. The Vex had taken something beautiful. They had buried it alive under layers of hate. Their song of power was a lie. It was built on a stolen song of peace. They had not created a weapon. They had corrupted something pure. It was the ultimate act of Vex culture. Find something lovely and make it loud and annoying. This was their weakness. They did not understand the foundation they had built upon. But we did. We understood it perfectly. That hidden melody became our path to victory. We took that simple scale and started over. We did not want to repair their anthem. We wanted to heal it. We began to rebuild the song from its peaceful foundation. Our composers worked with a new energy. They were no longer dissecting a weapon. They were liberating a prisoner. We inverted everything the Vex had done. Where their song was loud, ours was soft. Where their rhythm was a hammer, ours was a heartbeat. We removed the dissonance. We replaced the frequencies of fear with frequencies of calm. The notes were the same, but the meaning, the feeling, was transformed. It was no longer a conqueror's song. The first version was finished in a week. Kyle played it on a small wooden flute he had hidden for years. The sound filled the cramped bunker. It was a quiet, gentle melody. It was a song that asked for nothing. It promised only rest. We listened in stunned silence. We had taken their sword and beaten it into a lullaby. The first person to hear it was the little girl, Ilara. We brought her to one of our secret rooms. Her parents were with her. They were afraid. We were all afraid. We asked her mother to sing the new song, to sing it to her daughter as she fell asleep. The mother held her child close. She began to hum the soft, new melody. Ilara's eyes grew heavy. A small smile touched her lips. She slept. For the first time in years, a child slept peacefully in our city. The lullaby began its journey that night. We could not broadcast it. We could not sing it in the streets, not yet. We had to spread it like a secret. We used the old data networks, the ones the Vex thought were abandoned. We compressed the melody into a tiny file, a few seconds of audio, a simple string of notes. It was a whisper on the network. Parents sent it to other parents. They taught it to their children in hushed tones. The song moved from one home to another. It traveled through the dark, silent city. It was a ghost of a tune, a fragile thread of hope connecting us all. It became our shared secret, a quiet act of defiance performed every single night. In a world full of noise, we had found our own silence. Children stopped having nightmares of the anthem. They began to hum our version instead. The song changed us. It gave us a private world the Vex could not touch. They controlled our days, but our nights and our dreams now belonged to us. They thought their anthem made them strong, but our lullaby was making us stronger. It was a joke only we understood. We were using their own weapon to heal the wounds it had caused. It was inevitable that they would notice. The Vex were not fools, just musically challenged. The first sign came from an overseer. His name was Xylar. He was a low-level commander. He was in charge of a work crew in the factory district. He was known for his cold efficiency. He saw us as tools. He saw our world as a resource. He paid little attention to our culture. One afternoon, he was inspecting a production line. He heard something faint over the din of the machinery. A woman was working at her station. She was humming to herself as she worked. Xylar stopped. The tune was familiar. He recognized the melodic structure. It was a piece of their sacred anthem. But it was wrong. It was slow. It was soft. It did not inspire fear. He watched the woman. Her movements were calm and focused. There was no sign of the usual tension, no trace of the despair the anthem was meant to create. He saw other workers nearby. They heard her humming. They would smile faintly. It was a shared private moment, a moment of peace in the middle of the noise. Xylar was deeply confused. He was a soldier. He understood weapons. He did not understand this. The anthem was a symbol of his power, of Vex dominance. To hear it sung so gently by a conquered species, it was illogical. It was like watching a lamb sharpen a butcher's knife. It did not make sense. He filed a report. He called the sound a melodic deviation. He noted its unsettling effect on workforce morale. His superiors read the report. They were not amused. Zylar's report moved up the chain of command. Vex analysts retrieved the sound of the humming. They compared it to their anthem. The results were alarming. The core melody was a perfect match. But the emotional signature was inverted. Their weapon of fear had been transformed. It had been turned into a song of comfort. The Empire finally took notice. They called our lullaby a cultural plague, a sonic insurgency. It was a new kind of warfare they were unprepared for. They saw it as a deep insult. We had not just resisted their anthem, we had stolen it. We had corrupted their most sacred symbol. In their eyes, it was the ultimate act of disrespect. They believed we were mocking them. In fairness, we absolutely were. Their high command issued a decree. The lullaby was forbidden. Anyone caught humming the deviant melody would be punished. They called it a contagion. They said we were poisoning the soundscape. They seemed genuinely offended. It was as if we had criticized their cooking. Their reaction was not one of cold strategy. It was one of pure, wounded pride. They did not understand what we had done. They could not grasp how a lullaby could be a threat. They saw power in noise, in aggression. The concept of quiet strength was foreign to them. They were about to learn a very hard lesson, a lesson about music and a lesson about us. The Vex responded with the subtlety of a collapsing star. They decided to fight sound with more sound. It was the only way they knew. They increased the power of their broadcast towers. They doubled the volume of the anthem. They wanted to drown our lullaby in a tidal wave of noise. They thought they could silence our whispers with a roar. Their anthem became an oppressive physical force. It rattled windows. It shook the very foundations of our buildings. The air grew thick and heavy with it. This was their crackdown, a clumsy, brutal attempt to reclaim their sonic territory. But they had made a critical mistake. They had misunderstood the nature of our defiance. Their louder anthem did not crush our lullaby. It amplified it. The contrast made our quiet melody even more powerful. Their shouting only made our whisper clearer. In the shadow of their roaring weapon, our little song became a sanctuary. It was a shield. The louder they yelled, the more we cherished our secret tune. It became a game, a small act of daily rebellion. We would hum it just loud enough for a friend to hear. We would whistle it softly when a Vex patrol passed by. They could not arrest us all. The song was everywhere and nowhere. It was in our minds. It was in our hearts. Their crackdown was a complete and utter failure. They had only succeeded in making our lullaby stronger. We knew it was time for the next step. Our secret was too powerful to remain hidden. Whispers were no longer enough. We needed to sing. We started to weaponize our hope. It began in the crowded food distribution centers. A single voice would start humming the lullaby. Then another would join in. Soon, a whole crowd would be humming softly. The Vex guards would become agitated. They would shout for silence. But how do you stop 100 people from humming? The sound was gentle. It was non-threatening. There was no anger in it. There was only a quiet, unshakable calm. It was the most peaceful rebellion in history, and it was driving our conquerors crazy. The lullaby became our shield. When the Vex anthem blared, we would retreat into our song. It protected our minds from the psychological assault. It was a mental fortress built from a simple melody. We taught it to everyone. the young, the old. The song bound us together. It was a shared language of resilience. We started to look the Vex in the eye again. The fear they had cultivated for so long began to fade. It was replaced by a quiet confidence, a shared secret. We had found a weapon they could not understand, a weapon they could not fight. We were no longer victims of their song. We were the conductors of our own. The effect on the Vex soldiers was profound. They were warriors. They were raised on the anthem. It was woven into their identity. It was the sound of their home. It was the music of their glory. To hear it twisted into a human lullaby was deeply disturbing for them. It created a dissonance in their minds that they could not resolve. They would hear our quiet humming on their patrols. The melody was theirs, but the feeling was not. It was like looking into a distorted mirror. They saw their reflection, but it was wrong. It was weak. It was gentle. Everything the Vex were taught not to be. Our song chipped away at their certainty. It planted seeds of doubt. Some soldiers became angry. They saw our lullaby as a mockery. They became more brutal, more aggressive. But others grew quiet. They became withdrawn. We could see the confusion in their eyes. Their most powerful symbol had been turned against them. Their sacred song, the sound of their strength, was being used to put our children to sleep. How could they reconcile that? Their morale began to fracture. Fights broke out between soldiers. Some refused to go on patrol in the humming districts. The Vex command had a serious problem. Their own anthem was becoming a source of psychological stress for their troops. The very weapon that conquered us was now conquering them from within. It was beautifully ironic. We couldn't have planned it better if we had tried. The Vex decided to force a confrontation. Their high commander for our planet was a grim creature named Boral. He saw our lullaby as a challenge to his authority. He would not tolerate it. He planned a demonstration of power. He would remind us who was in control. He would blast the true anthem so loud it would shatter our little song forever. He chose the capital's central square. It was the site of our formal surrender. Boral ordered massive sonic emitters to be brought in. They were military-grade weapons. They were capable of turning rock to dust. He announced that all citizens were required to assemble. He was going to give us a concert. Attendance was not optional. This would be the day of 2 songs. We knew what was coming. Our secret network buzzed with messages. Be calm, be ready. Do not bring weapons. Just bring the song. That morning, we gathered in the square. Tens of thousands of us. We stood in silence, surrounded by Vex soldiers and their giant speakers. Boral stood on a high platform, looking down on us. He looked angry. He looked, for the first time, a little desperate. The Vex anthem began. It was not a broadcast. It was a physical assault. The air punched our chests. The ground trembled beneath our feet. The sound was a solid wall of fury and power. It was meant to break us. It was meant to scour our lullaby from our minds. Boral smiled. He thought he had won. He thought noise was the only answer. And then we answered him. A single, high, clear note from a child. Then another. Then 1,000. Then 10,000. We did not shout. We did not scream. We hummed. We hummed our lullaby. Our quiet little melody rose up to meet their storm of noise. It was a flicker of candlelight in a hurricane. But it did not go out. Our song was not a weapon of force. It was a weapon of truth. It rode on the very air their anthem disturbed. It found the cracks in their wall of sound. The Vex soldiers heard it. They heard their sacred music. And woven through it, haunting it, was our gentle, defiant version. The 2 songs fought in the air. They fought in the minds of our conquerors. It was a battle of meanings. Boral's face changed. The smile vanished. He ordered the volume to be increased, but it made no difference. Our lullaby was not about volume. It was about resonance. It resonated with the truth hidden in their own song. It resonated in the hearts of the Vex who heard it. Their anthem was just noise. Ours was a story, and a good story will always beat a loud noise. The soldiers lowered their weapons. The day of two songs had a clear winner. We never fired a single shot. We never raised a single fist. We won our world back with a song. In the days following the confrontation in the square, the Vex Empire on our planet crumbled. Their soldiers were broken. They could no longer hear their own anthem without hearing our echo. Their symbol of power was now a source of shame and confusion. They had no defense against it. The withdrawal was quiet and swift. They dismantled their broadcast towers. They loaded their ships. They left without a word. One day they were our masters. The next, they were just a bad memory set to a terrible tune. We stood in the silence they left behind. A true silence, for the first time in years. It was the most beautiful sound we had ever heard. We have rebuilt our world. We have brought back our own music. Our cities are once again filled with our own melodies. But we have kept one song from our conquerors. The lullaby is now our own. We sing it to our children. We play it at our ceremonies. It is our anthem. It is a reminder that the softest voice can break the loudest cannon. The conqueror's song is now a part of our history. We sent it back out into the void, not as a weapon, but as a message to the Vex, and to any others who might listen. It is a story of how a great empire was defeated by a child's hum. It is our song now, ringing out in the stars. A lullaby for conquerors. A promise that hope can be found in the most unexpected of melodies.